8 years of commitment, dedication, and sacrifices, all to be changed in the summer of 2016. I was at Indiana University's Jacobs School of Music for their intensive 4-week-long Summer String Academy program. This summer turned out to be the most crucial event in my development as a violinist because I got private lessons with Grigory Kalinovsky, a violin performance professor at Indiana University, who completely changed and fixed all of my techniques that I used to play. I encountered many different emotions such as frustration and failure, but after countless hours in the practice room, was rewarded with satisfaction and accomplishment. My first lesson with Kalinovsky was the most surprising and unexpected. The first thing he had me do was to play my piece, but I knew something was wrong right away when he stopped me before I even began. He took my violin from me and he started stripping it of my chin and shoulder rests. He changed my chin rest to a generic one, and he took away my shoulder rest for a clump of cabinet lining. He had that look in his eyes that showed he had a lot of work to do. As a stubborn kid, I rejected this right away. I didn't tell him to his face, but I hated the setup he gave me. I hated that I had to change my posture and the way I played, and I hated that he thought a generic setup that other people used would automatically work for me. The next thing he made me do puzzled me, as it was unlike any other lesson I had been in. He had me play one note on an open string, which means no fingers are pressing down on the string. This was surprising because I thought he would help me with my piece. He had me start with only one bow direction, and I did that for the rest of the hour-long lesson. Coming out of the lesson, I felt discouraged because he had taken everything I knew about playing the violin, threw it in the trash, and replaced it with this foreign technique. I also felt frustrated because I felt that I was the worst player at the camp because I couldn't even get past one note during my first lesson. Throughout the summer, I worked for hours developing Kalinovsky's new technique, and by the third week of the camp, I was able to play a 3-octave scale that pleased him. From that lesson, my confidence started to build. I was truly proud that he was finally happy with something I played, and while there was still much to improve, he saw that I was making progress. The last week of the camp, he started me on a simple piece. The recital was on the last Saturday, and he said that I could play the piece if I practiced hard. If I had nothing prepared for the recital, my performance would have to be just a scale. I worked the hardest I ever did that whole summer, as playing just a scale at the final concert of a 4-week intensive camp was a little too much for my ego to handle, and the first half of the piece was ready to perform by the final recital. After I completed my piece, I went back to my seat, and Kalinovsky told me that I had played it the best that he had heard me play it all summer, and that I had improved far more than he expected. This experience opened my eyes, let me realize what I was capable of when I put my mind to it, showed me that a situation is never impossible, and taught me how to receive constructive criticism. Although Kalinovsky once told me that I had the fingers of a violinist if only I knew how to use them, it didn't discourage me that much. Instead, it pushed me to prove him wrong and to prove that I would learn how to use them and play better than he ever expected. From this point forward, I learned in order to benefit the most from my professors and peers, I had to stop taking their criticism so personally, as they were not criticizing me as a person, but instead trying to help me improve. The main thing I identified standing in between myself and progress was my ego, so I learned to bury it deep when I knew it was a hindrance to my work. While in a way this was a setback in my development in playing the violin, it was also a boost forward because it taught me valuable lessons about perseverance and work ethic that I could use for the rest of my life. I interviewed my colleague Sabrina Town, a fellow musician at the University of Denver Lamont School of Music, who has played cello since she was 12 years old. She is also a dual learner like me, pursuing computer science along with music. As far as I know, we are the only 2 people in the music program pursuing complete opposite degrees from music, her with computer science and myself with mechanical engineering. She shares similar opinions to those in this autoethnography, and even admitted that there can be some downsides to music, with risks of endangering one's mental health if left unchecked.
I would say my career definitely started out in music. I studied cello performance pretty much full time, like my first year of college, and then kind of switched courses my sophomore year. But up until that point, yeah, my main focus was music and still happens to be. And I'm still like pursuing that as well as computer science, but more so kind of as a dual career choice. So I think for every musician, they kind of start off with a passion, and I think that's what's definitely sustained me over the years. I think at a certain point you kind of see it as a health benefit over time, but I think what for me personally what makes me motivated is just my passion for it.
Something we both shared was the lessons we learned from music carried into other places in our life, such as the work ethic and patience required for our other degrees of study. There may not be a concrete connection between the two, with math making us better at music or music making us better at coding, but the general lessons learned from both studies can be applied to the other.
I think, as cheesy as it sounds, the things that I've learned from music apply to literally everything that happens in life, whether that be just being able to find a balance between playing music and also balancing school, or kind of just regular life lessons. Music has really just taught me the patience and just the grit that you really have to pursue music and just get better at it. And yeah, I think that's definitely my main takeaways from it. I would say mental health wise, it definitely has its benefits for me. I think every time that I sit down and play cello, I'm kind of in this almost meditative state. And I think that's one of the really great benefits of music, is you're able to kind of slow down your mind and slow down everything around you and really just focus solely on the music and kind of what you're passionate about.
Sabrina's experience with using music as an almost meditative technique is one I can relate to. Often, if I am overworked, overstressed, or not super great events happen in my life, I can turn to music to help center myself again and curb the anxiety and stress building inside. It opens a door into a different world that I can only explore when I'm playing my violin, and it's a world that seems separated from all the negativity of everyday life. I often find that music has defined a good portion of my social life, with different factors playing into it, such as the requirement of being alone practicing for multiple hours in a day, or rehearsals usually clashing with other social events.
Yeah, I definitely think a lot of my social life kind of revolves around music, and my connections with people kind of happens to be based on the music. But I think, overall, it's, very prominent.
In reflection of my own life and my own connections with people, aside from childhood friends that I grew up with since elementary or middle school, the majority of my friends came from playing music together, either in a youth orchestra, summer academy, or college. I've also found that my bonds with musicians tend to last longer than others, as I still keep up with my very first roommate from the first summer academy I attended, and we tend to catch up more than I do with some of my friends from high school who I saw every day. When I asked if music had any potential negative side effects, Sabrina replied,
especially in moderation, music is good. And like I said, with balance and everything, balancing your personal life, but also your craft and what you're doing. And especially as a music major, kind of that balance sometimes gets off a little bit because you have so many responsibilities within music. And when that happens, I think it can turn into almost a spiraling thing, where if you're not kind of checking in with yourself and your mental health, music could have a toll. But I think that's the case with anything, any kind of career. So it's just about kind of how you manage it.
In my own life, it has only been under the toughest of circumstances that music has been a burden more than a blessing for my mental health. In spring quarter 2021, I was juggling the ending of a personal relationship, along with finals for my engineering classes and my software proficiency for music, and it was too much for me to handle both mentally and emotionally, but I did not come to terms with this until it was too late, with all aspects of my life taking a hit as I dipped to the lowest point in my life in terms of mental health. Music often carries a large amount of stress and anxiety, especially when performing, with stage fright activating my fight or flight responses almost every time I get on stage. Left unchecked, these could spiral into more dangerous situations.
Like I said before, I think music definitely shaped me into the person I am today, and it's taught me a lot of really good lessons, a lot of hard life lessons, but things that were worthwhile. And ultimately, I think I'm doing what I'm supposed to, and I'm passionate about what I do. And without that, I really don't know where I'd be, so.
When people hear music, they often think of a world-class orchestra, Shawn Mendes' newest album, or Carrie Underwood's Before He Cheats, but few take the time to think about the benefits that come with listening to or playing music. It's different, of course, for every musician, but there is one thing in common that we all recognize. Along with the enjoyment it brings, music strengthens mental and emotional health, acts as an oasis from everyday negativity, and affects other parts of life that may have no connection to music. Personally, it has helped me out of dark situations and taught me more life lessons than any other activity. And I wouldn't trade anything for my time spent playing music.